Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a feeling so many of us experience, but honestly, so rarely understand. You know those days where you spend the entire day doing absolutely nothing, yet by the end of it, you feel totally, completely exhausted? It's just draining, right? That heavy weight of everyday exhaustion when you haven't even moved a muscle. Well, we're going to break down the reality behind this invisible weight, unpacking 6 clear signs that what looks like simple laziness is actually something much, much more profound. Okay, let's dive into this. Am I depressed or just lazy? Man, it's a question that really lingers in the quietest, most vulnerable parts of our minds. You know the feeling. You find it incredibly difficult just to get out of bed, and immediately that hidden fear starts creeping in. You start wondering, is there a deeper problem here, or am I just failing at life's basic tasks? It's a super common fear, and as we analyze the source material today, you're going to see exactly why this confusion happens so frequently. Because let's be real, on the surface, depression and laziness can look remarkably similar. A person sitting on the couch all day, they look exactly the same from the outside, regardless of what's actually happening on the inside. But a surface-level assumption of laziness is literally a world apart from depression, which is a grave mental illness. It is absolutely vital that we separate the two. We're looking at this today to clearly remind you that battling depression does not make you a lazy person, and it certainly doesn't make you a bad person. Section 1. The internal struggle. To truly understand the difference between the two, we have to look inward at the first 2 signs of depression. We're focusing entirely on this invisible internal battle that outsiders practically never see. So the first sign is that you cannot simply snap yourself out of it. Imagine this scenario from our source. You're having a deeply down moment, and your best friend comes over to visit. They look at you and say, "You really need to snap out of it." And you reply, "I want to, but I just can't." You so desperately want them to understand how much you'd love to just enjoy watching your favorite movies again, but the joy is just gone. Hearing someone tell you to just snap out of it sounds extremely invalidating because it makes it sound like you're actively choosing to suffer. And that leads us straight to the undeniable truth presented here. Depression is never a choice. Absolutely nobody chooses to experience immobilizing levels of depression. I mean, think about it. If someone were actually given the choice to stop experiencing the suffocating weight, they would choose to stop in a heartbeat, right? Because it's not some lifestyle choice. It is a grave mental illness. And because it's a real illness, it requires professional treatment and, in some cases, medication to overcome. You can't just willpower your way out of it. This actually builds right into our second sign, the sheer inability to cheer yourself up. Have you ever felt super disheartened, but you literally can't pinpoint why? Like absolutely nothing you do lifts that heavy feeling in your chest? The source notes that depression causes extensive, long-lasting effects across multiple systems: your thinking, your emotions, perceptions, and behaviors. It basically causes you to feel sad about everything. And the most startling part? It doesn't even necessarily require a trigger. You don't need to have suffered a loss, a difficult event, or a major change in circumstances to feel this way. The heavy feeling, it just exists. So the crucial point is this stark contrast between the outside and the inside. Outwardly, someone's life might look totally awesome and amazing to the rest of the world. They might have a great job, great friends, and they'd probably even admit that their life is objectively good. Yet that person remains downcast, feeling completely dreadful inside, unable to pinpoint a single reason why. The inward reality simply doesn't match the outward appearance at all. Section 2. Losing interest and function. So, how exactly does this internal struggle shift into outward behavior? Well, the third sign is losing interest in absolutely everything. Everything in life just becomes less enjoyable, less intriguing, less important, and honestly, less worthwhile. And this isn't just some fleeting mood. It actually has a clinical name, anhedonia. It's the medical term for a significantly reduced desire and an overwhelming lack of motivation to do anything. Grounding this emotional feeling in clinical reality really helps us understand that when it becomes difficult to feel pleasure or anticipation, it's a documented medical symptom. It's not a personal failing. And this brilliantly illustrates how depression basically taints every single nook and cranny of your life. See, anhedonia doesn't just hit you all at once in a uniform way. It comes in varying degrees. Our source material explains that some people experience it by obtaining zero pleasure from being around other people. For others, it's a really cruel paradox. They feel incredibly lonely, yet at the exact same time, they desperately want to isolate themselves. It makes feeling pleasure, anticipation, or motivation feel functionally impossible. which, as you can guess, triggers a total domino effect, leading us to the fourth sign, the inability to function like you used to. We're seeing major cascading effects here. Unlike normal grief, which, certainly hurts but eventually passes over time, clinical depression causes you to withdraw from daily activities entirely. You stop communicating with loved ones. You might physically go to work, but you're completely unable to focus on the task at hand. The normal baseline of your life just slips away.
Jumping over daily challenges suddenly feels like climbing a mountain. You might wake up and know you need to do something as basic as taking a shower, but you look at the bathroom and simply think, what's the point? The hurdles just seem way too high, and so instead of functioning, you just retreat back to bed. It's a really agonizing state where the simplest tasks require monumental, exhausting effort.
Section 3, laziness is not a choice. The fifth sign is that your supposed laziness isn't triggered by anything specific. You might find this unenergetic routine perpetuating itself, like preferring to lie around in bed instead of doing your laundry. But here is what the data actually tells us. A depressed person may look lazy simply due to apathy and impassiveness. They might just not care to accomplish a goal, displaying what psychologists call learned helplessness. There is often no lucid or direct reason why this behavior happens. It's not a choice to avoid chores, guys. It's a systemic shutdown of drive. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how accurately this quote captures the internal monologue. I know what I have to do to accomplish my goals, but no matter how much my mind ruminates and reminds myself about it, I never do it. I suppose I'm lazy. Have you ever confessed this to a trusted friend, or maybe just thought it quietly to yourself? Your mind is constantly ruminating over goals, you logically know the steps, and yet you remain physically frozen? And this brings us to the sixth and final sign. Laziness has basically become a hackneyed term. It acts as a harsh character judgment that honestly does absolutely nothing to help us comprehend why someone isn't putting their best foot forward. The vital takeaway here is that what we call laziness is perceived as the problem rather than a symptom of a much deeper problem. When we just wave someone off and call them lazy, we completely miss all the red flags that they are actually depressed and urgently need treatment. Section 4, Finding the Light. But once we peel back the judgment and understand the signs, we can absolutely find a clear path forward toward healing and solutions. Let's look at the reality of depression as outlined by the source. First off, it is a complex, multisystemic disease. It often appears concomitantly with other psychiatric problems, like anxiety disorders or phobias. Because of this immense complexity, a truly holistic understanding has sometimes been kind of elusive. It's usually cyclical, meaning it comes and goes in waves. But look at that final bullet point. It is highly treatable, even in the most severe cases. There is tremendous hope here. So, what are the next steps? First, the underlying issues must be addressed. Second, and most importantly, no one should ever hesitate to seek professional help if you or a loved one are exhibiting these behaviors. And finally, taking action early can actually hinder and forestall recurrent episodes. By treating it like the medical condition it is, rather than some character flaw, you open the door to actual sustainable healing. We've explored the profound difference between a surface-level assumption and a grave internal struggle. So I want to leave you with this final thought to really reflect on. Will you keep blaming yourself for being lazy, or are you ready to treat the real problem? The power to strip away the stigma is entirely in your hands. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this knowledge empowers you to seek the healing you deserve.